It swings away. Clear spells follow. And then into the weekend, we've got sunshine and showers on Saturday, with the showers and this westerly wind just packing into northwest England, western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Showers more scattered elsewhere, not many of them getting to eastern areas, generally dry and bright here. The likelihood of a bit more cloud spilling into the southwest, with some outbreaks of rain coming in here, more particularly late afternoon into the evening. Temperatures a touch higher on Saturday, but still it will be quite breezy. The wind's easing down further on Sunday, and bar 1 or 2 showers in western Scotland, most of us on Sunday should be dry and bright.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters, with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good evening. In a moment, headliners first. The headlines. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor will meet the head of the Office of Budget Responsibility tomorrow as they face criticism of the mini-budget and chaos in the financial markets. Speaking for the first time since the tax-cutting measures were announced, Liz Truss insisted the £45 billion package is the right plan to get the economy moving. Kwasi Kwarteng, who was with the Prime Minister today in Darlington, said the strategy will help people with their energy bills and support those struggling with the cost of living.
What we're focusing on is delivering the growth plan and making sure, with things like our energy intervention, that people right across this country are protected. And without growth, you're not going to get the public services. We're not going to generate the income and the tax revenue to pay for the public services that we want to see. And that's why the mini-budget was absolutely essential in resetting the debate around growth and focusing us on delivering much better growth outcomes for our people.
Kwasi Kwarteng, the Chancellor, well, the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, says the plans are unfunded and she's urging the government to recall Parliament.
Financial markets are rightly very worried about the government's so-called mini-budget, a series of unfunded tax cuts. And it's not just financial markets, it's families and pensioners up and down the country who are worried sick about what this means for interest rates, what it means for their pensions. The government needs to rethink this crisis made in Downing Street, recall Parliament and reverse their budget.
Merseyside police have arrested a 34-year-old man on suspicion of the murder of Olivia Pratt-Corbell, who was killed in Liverpool last month. The 9-year-old girl was shot in her home in Dovecot. Her mother was also injured. The suspect is being questioned by officers who continue to appeal for information. The reward offered in the hunt for the killer had been increased to £200,000. Russia is formally to annex 4 areas of Ukraine tomorrow, following so-called referenda on becoming part of the country. President Vladimir Putin will hold a signing ceremony in Moscow for the regions across southern and eastern Ukraine. But President Volodymyr Zelensky has called the votes illegal and made a plea to Russian soldiers to stop fighting what he's calling Putin's war.
You do not have to die in Ukraine. Your sons do not have to die in Ukraine. You have no such obligation or duty. Not to your fathers, not to your children, not to your future, not to the future of your land. And you know it. We see that you are resisting the criminal mobilization with which the Russian authorities want to cover up their failure.
President Zelensky. Well, just lastly, in the United States, President Biden has said Hurricane Ian is feared to have caused a substantial loss of life. The hurricane, which peaked at Category 4, caused severe flooding, high winds and storm surges right across Florida. President Biden spoke during a visit to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA.
It made landfall yesterday, and it is still moving across the state today. This could be the deadliest hurricane in Florida's history. The numbers are still unclear, but we're hearing early reports of what may be substantial loss of life.
You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Andrew Doyle and I'm going to be taking you through Friday's newspapers in the company of 2 stalwarts of the UK comedy circuit. I've got Josh Howie and Kerry Marks. But before we begin there, we're going to take a look at tomorrow's front pages. And we start with Friday's Daily Mail now, and they lead with Truss. I'm not for turning. That's Liz Truss vowing to press ahead with her controversial and difficult economic plans, despite warnings it could cost her the next election. Friday's Telegraph. And they run with benefits hit as PM tries to stem bleeding. Very dramatic headline. And also trans charity in chest binder row under investigation. That's the charity Mermaids. We're going to be talking about that in a little while. To the front of the Independent now, and they have Biden declares major disaster in Florida. That is, of course, the devastating effects of Hurricane Ian. And Truss defiant on tax cuts as voters abandon Tories. And, of course, we're going to be getting to that as well in just a moment. Friday's Guardian is leading with PM holds crunch talks with Watchdog over fiscal chaos, and also Putin set to annex parts of Ukraine. The Times, defiant PM set to curb benefits to fund budget, and also with 4 pen strokes, Putin carves up Ukraine. To the front of the Express now, peaceful death of Queen from old age. This is the revelation that of the death certificate which has been released, which indicates that she died of old age as opposed to any other symptoms. And then Metro now, Labour lead Tories by 33 points. We're going to be talking about that in a moment. And finally, we have the Daily Star, and they are bucking the trend, avoiding the mini-budget entirely in favour of robot Armageddon, science friction. They're saying that psychotic cyborgs are probably going to destroy the world. And those are your front pages. And we're going to kick off tonight's show with Liz Truss. She is digging her heels in. Is that misogynistic of me, Kerry, to say that? It's just a metaphor, isn't it? It's fine.
It is a metaphor, and yes, she is. The heading of the Daily Mail is Truss, I'm not for turning, which, of course, is referring to her being a fan of Margaret Thatcher, which she doesn't really like the reference, gets her upset, and she kicks her cat, Dennis. And apparently she does answer if you shout Margaret at her from behind. But she's sticking to her guns after this mini-budget, which has had some major effects. The pound plonked down. The Bank of England had to step in with a £65 million intervention. Many Tories unhappy. The RSPB are unhappy about it. They think it doesn't fly with the birds. Because it's included abandoning plans for farmers and landowners to pay them to help preserve areas of wildlife. So there's always other little effects. So a lot of people very unhappy with it. She's sticking with it and saying that the people will feel the benefits in long term. I don't know which people she means. And how long term is the question?
Okay.
What stamina does she actually have?
Well, Josh, what do you think about this?
Well, I think what she means when she says the people feel the benefits in the long term, it's like those who survive will have a higher tolerance for starvation and the cold.
OK. Well, let me just suggest another way of looking at this. I mean, you know, ultimately, she's sticking to her guns because her view is that she needs to stimulate economic growth. It's not going to happen immediately. You get this. The markets are spooked in the short term, and you get the pound plummeting. But ultimately, if you stick it out, you'll see the benefits next year. And that, I think, obviously, is what she's hoping, what the Chancellor is hoping. Is there not something to be said for that?
But in the meantime, the cost of borrowing by the government is going up.
Yes.
So that's a real problem, because borrowing that money now to pay... Whichever way you look at it, it's always going to be bad optics to be giving this tax cut to the richest in our country.
Yes. It's bad optics, and it's a hell of a gamble. If she manages to stay in long enough to find out whether it's going to work at all.
I think the optics is right. I suppose it's similarly bad optics to get rid of the cap on bankers' bonuses, because nobody likes the bankers, nobody likes all the millions that they get. But on the other hand, if you look at the history, when prime ministers have cut the top rate of income tax, growth has resulted.
Well, look, none of us here are economists. We're comics.
Speak for yourself.
Sorry.
Yeah, Kerry's very much.
Apologise.
I've listened to a lot of talk about this now. I'm not sure anyone really knows anything, to be honest.
No, but neither do economists. I mean,
but my point, what I do trust is the market, to a degree, and the market has responded very badly to that, because the people who do know are putting their money or taking their money out of it, because they don't have faith in the system.
But one thing the only thing I do know, the only book on economics I ever read by Joseph Schumpeter made the point that economists always get it wrong when they predict. There's no point in making predictions when it comes to the economy. Kwarteng basically said, well, this is the market. So, in other
maybe
words,
the economists, even the economists get it wrong, but the people who, the actual money people whose job it is out there, they seem to be basically going, they're scared.
But on that, I mean, should the International Monetary Fund even be getting involved? Should they even be saying, no one asked for their advice, nobody asked for a bailout, and they're coming along and saying, this is a disaster, the UK government has got to change their policy. That's a sort of very anti-democratic intervention, which, by the way, spooked the markets just as the pound was climbing up again. It dropped again as soon as the IMF stuck their beaks in.
Yes, this is the problem. It's all down to confidence, and what happens when they do that is they already affect the way people feel about the whole thing anyway.
Yes.
So then we see lots of different effects.
Well, what I'd be interested in, if this time next year it transpires that Truss's plans have yielded fantastic results, will people be willing to say, that was the right thing to do?
I would, because I'm an incredibly fair human being.
How would you measure it? The truth about economics is there's so many factors involved. It's very hard to say which thing actually made a difference, because also wars involved and so on, and something could change on the global scale. So
I mean, I'm with you.
We don't know.
I think the richest people should be taxed more, but I also understand that those who want to give tax breaks to the rich aren't necessarily doing it because they want the rich people to be richer for their own sake. They are saying that this will lead to better public services. There's a trickle-down effect, the poorest in society. I think the intentions can be very good.
But the money market disagrees.
At the moment.
Well, at the moment, that's going to have real long-term influences, impact on the rest of the country.
None of us know, do we? We're not Nostradamus.
I know.
Josh knows. Josh always knows. On to Friday's Times now. Keir Starmer may not know what a woman is, but he's doing remarkably well at the polls, isn't he? This is weird.
Yes, Labour has a 33-point lead over the Tories, and that's the largest poll lead enjoyed by a party with any pollster since the late 90s. And I don't know if you know what happened in the late 90s. Things can only get better.
Yeah, Dareem got to number one. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So this obviously ties into the last story, but
that's a big.
It's a huge jump, and it's over the last week. Now, we talk about the intelligence of the general public. 40% of the population are blaming the government's economic policies on the situation that we're in right now. So I'm going to go with that 40%, not the 17% blaming Russia.
How much is it going to be retained, though? Because at the moment, all eyes are on the Labour conference, and we're getting a lot of their rhetoric through. This might shift next week. We're going to hear the Tories. They're going to be given their.
Are any of them going to turn up?
Well, they're going to be given an opportunity to defend their point of view on this, and maybe the spin will change.
I think Liz Truss is going to have a hard problem following the speech made by Keir Starmer, because right now he's had a field day conference, hasn't he? The Tories right now are very unpopular. The budget was unpopular. He got to make his speech, and this was like the rise of the dull man. Right now, all around the country, people who are really quite dull are feeling very good about themselves. He showed what they can do.
But it isn't just about the economy, though. I mean, the thing is, Boris Johnson got that whopping 80-seat majority largely because of the Brexit vote, largely because of Labour putting through their disastrous second referendum plan, even though 70% of Labour constituencies voted leave. It was a real slap in the face for their core traditional base. And those people, let's not forget, they lent their votes to the Tories. Those weren't Tory voters who gave them that majority, and they are falling away. You know, they needed to do more in the industrial heartlands. They talked about levelling up over and over again. Did anything actually happen?
No, of course not, because they were just constantly dealing with their own crisis of their own making, but also things like COVID, to be fair. But, you know, when you say, is Liz Truss going to be able to bring it back next week, you know, I don't think so. I mean, look, if you listen to those radio interviews this morning, and that was funny, because obviously they said, oh, go out there and just do a bunch of regional radio, because they won't, you know, it'll be softballs. And obviously the thing is, on the regional radio, you had a bunch of people desperate to prove themselves, who were probably up all night studying, and they all just went for it, and it fell apart. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, I feel a bit bad for her in a way. But what about this thing about this report? I mean, it's talking about how most people are suggesting, according to this, 44% of Britons say that Rishi Sunak would have been the better choice. Do you think there's something in that, Kerry?
We've got the problem with party members voting for leaders at the moment, and I think that just wouldn't. It's been responsible for the last few unpopular leaders, and I think that's something that's really got to change back.
Did the Tories make a mistake stabbing Boris in the back? In retrospect.
Well, are we going to see him make a comeback is very possible, isn't it? There's a number of people predicting that.
He sort of made some overtures and that. I mean, that would be incredible. He came back, Trump comes back. It would just be like going back in time.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, it's... but that is, as you say, that's the problem is we have, you know, 100,000, 150,000 people making a decision about who runs our country, and then...
That is the way it happens. That is the
toilet.
That is the rule. But anyway, I agree with you. I think maybe another general election is the best way to...
But I do think Starmer should sort out what a woman is. I agree with you on that.
I mean, he's doing well, and Owen Jones is unhappy. So
that was a good video. Did you see that Jess Phillips being interviewed by Owen Jones?
I did see that.
It was great.
That was really good because they were both trying to be super polite to each other. But they were seething.
It was like their teeth were... Well done, Owen!
I really think we should just elect whoever makes Owen Jones unhappy.
That's definitely
Moving on to Friday's Mirror now, and these are some details of Her Majesty's passing. Death certificate, Kerry's just been released.
The death certificate has been released, and the Queen's cause of death was, big surprise, old age, which is very impressive, actually. I don't know how many people actually die of old age anymore. Normally, it's very hard to go through a whole life and not catch something.
Yeah. And that's what we would have expected, 96 years old.
I think it does help if you have royal level health care.
I'm sure it does. Absolutely.
I don't think most of us are privy to that.
Any thoughts on this one, Josh?
Well, yeah, just I didn't realise next in the birth certificate, next to her occupation, they wrote Her Majesty the Queen, which is what I write next to my occupation whenever I have an opportunity to.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, I always write, the Queen.
Well, that's because you're a comedian.
There it is.
I think it's a shame she didn't last us 4 more years, and she would have had to write herself a letter of congratulations.
That was the big thing we were all waiting for.
The old telegram there. Anyway, over to Friday's Telegraph now. Mermaids under investigation, not the mythological aquatic hybrid human-fish monstrosity. They're safe for now.
I know, yeah.
Josh,
but
what's going on here?
The trans charity Mermaids to be investigated by the Charity Commission. This, for those of us involved in this gender-critical argument, this is very good news because...
Who are Mermaids? Maybe you should...
Mermaids are a charity that essentially set up to support trans children, or some people would argue there's no such thing as trans children, but and their families. Now, that is... on the paper, a very good thing, but the support that they've been giving is this affirmative action thing where they just go, right, you say you're trans, you're 13 years old, and we're going to support you to make that stuff happen. Also, we're going to go out into schools, into to the police force, wherever, and advocate for this position. And there was an investigation by the Telegraph the other day where they'd been sending free binders out to this, 13-year-old.
And we should be clear, chest binders, so these are, obviously, in order to flatten the chest.
I use one on my stomach.
Yeah, well, no, that's just, of course it is.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
a different
okay,
thing. But this is what these things do. They can actually be very damaging. They can have very
spinal damage,
rib damage,
breathing difficulties,
all this sort of stuff. So really,
broken ribs even.
the parents have to be.
And they were doing it, without the parents, because like literally they were saying, okay, which address should we send it to? Because this child.
So I mean, Kerry, this is a little bit troubling, isn't it? Because the mermaids seem to be pushing this affirmative notion of gender identity when children, as we know, are all over the place, particularly in puberty.
Of course. Look, there's an element where if they're helping children who are struggling with identity, that's a good thing. The trouble is they're going way beyond remit, according to this study of what's going on. There's parts of the trans ideology I really like. They've taught a whole generation what pronouns are, which is pretty impressive.
I mean, I didn't do that as an English teacher.
I know.
I can succeed.
It's quite a dramatic exercise.
Although they've made up a whole load of new pronouns which don't make sense, and they've claimed that they is singular. So as an English teacher, I oppose that.
It went over the top, totally.
It did, didn't it?
But this is all happening whilst Mermaids is suing the LGBT Alliance.
So that's really fascinating, because Mermaids have kind of brought this on themselves. Because Mermaids have tried to have LGBT Alliance stripped of its charity status on the grounds that they are transphobic, which they're not, by the way. But it's drawn so much attention to them that initiated, I think, this Telegraph investigation, because they said in court at the LGBT Alliance hearing, Mermaids that is, said that they don't offer medical advice to kids. The Telegraph has now proved they actually do.
To online, their online kind of advice service, they said to like 12, 13-year-olds, oh yeah, puberty blockers they're reversible and stuff. And it's pretty much accepted now by lots of these studies that they're not reversible at all.
And there are lots of potential health risks.
Like brittle bones, the way the brain grows and everything. And this Mermaid charity, they get £20,000 of public money, but they've got $500,000 from lottery company. So absolutely, this needs to be looked into, and it's, as someone says here, there's a lot of red flags in its dealing with children.
I would say so. I mean, I take your point, Kerry, about children struggling with their gender identity do need help, do need support. But Mermaid's view of support is just affirm whatever the child says, not talk about them, talk to them in a therapeutic way, which, by the way, is what they call trans conversion therapy. They give it this alarmist label, whereas actually that would be the more helpful thing, is to talk to kids.
Totally, but I mean, this isn't conclusive yet.
No, it's not.
But the evidence coming up is to say they've been doing things behind parents' backs, so sending out binders whilst parents have actually said they don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So
and by the way, people have been porting out concerns, with Mermaids for a long time now, and anyone who raised any of these issues was deemed a bigot. By even people within our own, by comics, there are a couple of comics who really went starting dog piles on people.
Yes.
And it's like, and then I've noticed a few of them have been deleting their tweets supporting Mermaids over the last year or so.
I think we're seeing a lot of ideology collapsing, though. I think that normally happens. Ideology rises, gets angry, reaches a point, and then has to backtrack a little bit, and then comes down to something sensible.
But I wish more people would admit it. Since the Cass report came out, and we now know that the Tavistock Child Paediatric Clinic was a danger to kids. It was unsafe for them. That's now confirmed. Very few of those people who supported the Tavistock have said, I got it wrong.
You want them all to come out and apologise?
I don't need an apology. A little bit of humility wouldn't go amiss, would it?
I would like an apology.
You want an apology?
A personal one, yeah?
Yes, from all of them.
Very strange.
And I've got the list and I'm ready to tick it off.
I still can't believe this group called themselves Mermaids. I mean, they lure people to their deaths on the rocks. It's not exactly the ideal name. Anyway, on to the state of children's lungs now. This from Friday's Sun, Kerry.
A major review of vaping finds that finds age group at greater risk of harm. Vaping is not risk-free, warn government experts who are calling for a crackdown on sales to kids. I don't think crack would help much, but anyway.
Can you explain this to me, Kerry? Because I thought, surely water vapour is better for you than tobacco?
Well, OK, the studies... The King's College have done... I've looked at 400 studies to come up with this, and they're saying that vaping is less harmful than cigarettes, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
But we don't know. Look, for a long time, light tobacco, you buy Marlboro Lights, whatever, were considered to be better for you than the full-on tobacco range. And then after a lot of studies, they found that it was going deeper into the lungs. So I still think vaping is very young at the moment.
You're saying it's something we don't know enough about.
I don't think so yet. I think...
You might
this is just personal view. I think anything that's still as new as that. But what surprised me the most is you've got loads of youngsters who are vaping who weren't on cigarettes. So they didn't go through the phase of being cigarette smokers who then went to vaping. They went straight to the method that people are considering is good for getting off cigarettes.
So are you saying that a lot of them, because they thought it was just water vapour and various flavours, they started on this, then they got addicted to the nicotine, which is of course in there.
Yes.
And then maybe that's a gateway to actual cigarettes. Is that right, John?
Yeah, but they're basically saying just don't do any e-cigarettes.
Okay.
That's what they're saying. And they're saying, this is Dr. Janelle de Gruchy, who's the Deputy Chief Medical Officer for England, said if there's a choice between vaping and fresh air, choose fresh air. So if you want to be cool kids, go out in the morning when it's cold and blow some smoker rings.
That's true. You can say that with anything, though. Don't eat too much food, go and get some fresh air.
Get some fresh
air.
Yeah,
fresh air is not that much fun, though, is it?
Not in London, which is a basin full of fog and pollution and stuff like that.
Go e-cigarettes.
These have got all these different flavours. There's pink lemonade, strawberry, banana and mango, but all very chemical.
I mean, it's a bit like Alka-Pops, isn't it? You can see why kids are enticed by it. But I'm interested in this idea that maybe we don't know about the potential harms. My grandmother took up smoking, ended up being a chain smoker in her later life because the doctor told her to. So this would be good for your health. So maybe there is something around the corner. We don't know about this stuff.
I tried vaping for a while, and you can't flip it into your mouth like a cigarette.
No, it doesn't just smash your teeth out.
Yeah, you smash. They're still too, even the ones that are thin, they're too metallic.
For you, Kerry, it was all about looking cool.
That's how I lost all my teeth.
Well, that is it for part one. And coming up, free speech on university campuses, the future of the internet, and life on Mars. You won't want to miss that. See you in 2 minutes.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales,
And Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio,
And online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Andrew Doyle, and I'm here with Josh Howie and Kerry Marks. Let's crack straight on. Let's begin this section with the state of free speech at universities. Josh, this is a subject you're very interested in.
It is indeed, after reading your wonderful, very thin book.
That's what I was hoping you'd do, with plug the book.
There we are.
Thank you.
And your new book as well, which I'm really enjoying at the moment. Anyway, so Conservative students unable to openly talk about their views on campus. This is a study, more than 2/3 of undergraduates who say they would vote Tory reluctant to express their opinions. Now, you sort of would somewhat expect that a little bit. Like, traditionally, universities are seen as a sort of left-wing environment. Mm-hmm. It isn't a good thing, obviously, but actually, when you read a bit more into it, it's actually those with left-wing views are also increasingly fearful of expressing their opinions.
Not to the same extent.
Not to the same extent.
I'd say a third of left-wing students are saying that, which is still double what it was a few years ago.
Yeah, which is not a good direction we're moving in. You could argue that the toxicity of the online debates have made people feel in real life maybe we just stay out of this stuff.
Does it just mean that any view that you express, people will react with hostility even though
you should see my Twitter feed after.
Well, I have seen your Twitter feed.
It's painful.
Kerry, do you think there's a particular problem with Conservatives? If they do express their views, they're seen very as unfashionable, unpopular, so they just keep it to themselves, and then all the polls are wrong because no one wants to admit that they.
We keep being wrong about, and even with the turnout we saw after the Queen's death, I think it surprised a lot of people because we don't hear royalists very much. They don't express themselves. And
do you watch GBNews, mate?
Except on GBNews. I mean, generally not. And so I think, yes, we keep getting we don't have a very good understanding of how people feel around us. But it's good for you to be able to take opinions that you don't agree with and be able to discuss them. I think it's a shame. And I also think because free speech is one of the few things left that are free, and we should be able to enjoy it. But I'll tell you, there's one interesting thing about this is that this is Professor Bobby Duffy, who was in charge of this. Bobby. He's the director of the Policy Institute at the King's College in London. He said we can't divorce these trends in universities from changes in wider society, where we've seen increasing focus on cultural issues which influence student opinions. So the part of what's going on is, for a while now, we've been hearing about right-wing views not being accepted in university. Now the more extreme left-wing views are getting unpopular as well, because what we're seeing is a change in ideology. But also a lot of students are upset about this. They're upset about what's going on in the outside world, the wider world, because university students above them have moved out into that wider world and started spreading ideologies.
So this is a problem.
So they're now the new generation coming through.
So ideology is the problem, and intolerance is the problem.
Intolerance.
If we could just have a situation where, I remember being back at university, we used to disagree and argue all the time, and that was part of the fun of it. We'd stay up all night.
Well, you're finding your position by arguing. That's how you refine your thoughts. But the other statistic here, and they present this in the Telegraph as a good thing. They go, free speech well protected at universities, and they say this because 65% of students surveyed this year said that free speech and robust debate were well protected at their institution. That's a terrible... Only 65% of students still...
Well, there's also... I mean, whenever you see these surveys, sometimes I despair. There was one last year which talked about... It was roughly a quarter, I think it was roughly 25% of students, in America this was, claimed that it was OK to resort to physical violence if people expressed extreme views. Now, the problem with that as well, leaving aside the fact that physical violence is always wrong, but also what people consider extreme views now are often actually very mainstream views that the vast majority of people hold. If people believe that there is a biological difference between men and women, that's now seen as a form of extremism and could be legitimately...
Well, they say a similar thing here where they talk about, like, people with conservative views, but what exactly...
What do they mean?
They're not saying, let's say, voting choice. They say they could mean exactly that. A conservative view is that you think sex is binary.
Yeah, which is not a conservative view.
No, exactly. And it's interesting now how there has been this, this sort of devolving between left and right, between some issues have sort of somehow taken over from
I suppose evolution's quite conservative, quite old-fashioned. It's been going
Yeah,
on for ages.
It's been working for a while.
It's such squares, man.
Yeah, get with the programme. Anyway, over to Friday's Independent now. It seems the future of the internet is secure. I didn't realise it was in peril.
I'm totally taken by this story, Andrew. I thought this was a spoof, like an Onion thing or something. It's I'll read this. America. I'm going to read this because I want to make this clear. America beats Russia.
Yes.
You don't even know what the story is.
I don't care.
You're just so happy.
Go USA!
Taught them a lesson. Beats Russia in United Nations election. This is an election that takes place that determines the future of the internet. Doreen Bogdan-Martin will head the International Telecommunications Union for the next 4 years. So there is actually a vote over who basically has control of the internet.
Is that what it is? They can completely control the internet globally?
She's got... It's all on her computer at home.
She's got it on a laptop.
It's all down to her. One person decides everything.
It's like the
all those Amazon reviews. She does it all.
So the thing about... What does this mean, though, for these states, such as China, that want to control what their citizens can see on the web?
They still can. Yeah. They can still make decisions in their own country, but there has to be an overall umbrella decision. And that, fortunately, didn't go to a country that already shuts down free speech and has loads of bots that it fills the internet with that try to control free speech.
Seems a bit mad, doesn't it, that Russia might have been in control of this?
Yes,
but it's
incredible.
Well, the reason is because there's something called the Splinternet. So this is the
what?
The Splinternet.
Okay.
I.e., these countries will just kind of control their own internet, like China has the Great Wall, the Great Firewall, whatever. So they can control these social media sites and shut down things, whatever. So that's why China, Russia want to have more access or direct influence on this stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, America, even though America has got Google and all the big companies, but they want to keep it a much more open system. So this is what Russia and China said in their joint statement: the sovereign right of states to regulate the national segment of the internet. That's what, adding that they would enhance the role of International Telecommunication Union and strengthen representation of the two countries. I.e., basically what they're trying to say is they want to... They think that's going to... They're trying to pretend that's going to be good for democracy, but it isn't.
No powerful body should be controlling the internet, and I include in that Silicon Valley.
Yes,
because
agreed.
they are also ideologically skewed as well, and that doesn't help anything.
Yes, but still, at least if apparently there is this thing, and if there is one overall group, at least there are ones that will allow for freedom of information. What's interesting is this group has been around since 80 years before the United Nations.
Blimey, how can that
So what
work?
was it doing?
Yeah.
It predates the United
I think
Nations.
it was doing like telegrams and all that sort of stuff.
Was
Morse
it?
code. That
Whatever,
okay.
Letter writing.
Yeah, do you remember?
Whatever happened to that? Let's go on now to Friday's Mail, and the pound may be down, but divorces are up.
Yes, divorce applications soar to their highest level in a decade, and this is because of the introduction of the new no-fault laws.
Not because of the pandemic and people had to spend too much time with their spouses.
I imagine that's partly related, but not traditionally. You'd have to wait a certain amount of time, like be separated for years, or one or both of you would basically admit fault in some way, like I committing adultery or unreasonable behaviour, as my wife calls it. And but the blame game is now gone. Now you can basically just say, yeah, we just don't like it.
So isn't this a good thing? Because how is it helpful when two people want to get divorced for them to send legal papers to each other outlining why the spouse was such a terrible husband or wife and why they're all to blame? And because obviously both sides are going to think the other one's to blame.
Yeah, but I think it's actually a bit of I think blame is good. Like, I'm a big fan of blame.
Okay. Is this the way you blame your audiences for not laughing?
Always. I blame everyone. It's
It's
never my
he's
fault.
right. It's always the audience's fault.
Yeah, it's always the audience. They never get it. It's so stupid.
We know what we're doing. They don't.
But this isn't good for kids, though. So what I mean is when there's a divorce and
they can't get married, mate.
Yeah, and you can't blame them for having an affair.
I mean, they do get... I mean, it is very upsetting to see your parents divorce anyway, but when you see them basically saying, yeah, and the other one was really rubbish at being married...
Yes, it's bad for them if their parents divorce, but if all parents divorce, then it's good for them. You know, then they fit in again.
You're pushing for 100% divorce
I think that might solve the problem.
You want to abolish marriage.
This is ridiculous that we ever had a law saying that you had to find blame in someone where it didn't exist. You had to claim someone's had an affair or done something awful. That's
Sometimes
terrible.
it just fizzles out, doesn't it?
I wouldn't know. I'm very happily married, thank you. But
I wonder if you can backdate it, though. If you, like, 10 years ago, you said someone had an affair that didn't, and you can go, actually, that didn't happen.
Well, they're saying that people have been holding on for this law to come into effect to now do it. But the other interesting thing is that 98% of these divorces are digital cases now. So it's all done online, and you can literally get your divorce, like, click a button.
You can marry online.
Well, you get married online, but
you don't have to meet your partner.
But you can get divorced and then go straight onto Tinder within one swipe.
The solution is just be a Catholic, because we have the annulment system.
OK.
It's a much better system. Anyway, we're going to move on now to Friday's Independent. 50 years ago, this headline would have been the biggest story in history, and now it's relegated to the middle of a late-night topical comedy show. Kerry. It would have been huge, wouldn't it? Many years ago.
Is it not huge now?
Apparently not.
Let's discuss the story without telling anyone what it is. How huge do you think
They'll
it is?
never find out.
Let's not tell them.
Scientists have found fresh evidence of liquid water on Mars, which is that's a major breakthrough.
David Bowie song.
I mean,
we've known about ice water for a long time. There's ice caps that are roughly the size of Greenland combined.
Well, then they must
we didn't
have
know was liquid water.
They have to have water if there's ice.
because unless there is somewhere underground where you get liquid water, running water, then you're not going to get any chance of... they did add straight away that the findings do not necessarily mean that life exists on Mars, which they had to say for stupid people to jump to conclusions.
Does this mean that colonising would be a more feasible option?
Yes.
The water is there, although they're saying that it would have to be very salty for it to remain liquid at such cold temperatures.
I see.
So you need some desalination.
And why are they so excited about Mars being wetter than we thought?
Because potentially water is needed for life.
Right.
We don't... as far as I understand, that's not an absolute... life as we understand it and know it.
Yes.
There are, I believe, theories
silicon-based life forms.
Right, OK. We sound really intelligent right now. We're not, though. But so, yes, if they found even so much as one microbe, it would change everything.
It would, wouldn't it?
It would
I've got
mean
my
that
fingers
there's life
crossed
over the
for
rest of the
aliens.
universe.
I've seen Total Recall. I think it's a great film. I want to go and live there.
Well, what we just have to hope is that they look after their ice caps better than we do, and the Martians have got their bags for life, and they're recycling.
I'm sure they're very responsible people. Let's move on now. This is staying in the cosmos now, and we can now look back to the beginning of time. I can barely remember what I did this morning.
Well, if you're a star, you existed 13 billion years ago at the beginning of the universe. Yeah. And this is a James Webb telescope, sees stars from 13 billion years ago. Now, the sun is only 4.6 billion years. Our sun is a little baby.
That's the picture.
Johnny come late, but there we go.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
And from that, it is almost like time travel because of obviously like it takes. If you've seen Interstellar, you'll have some understanding that gravity affects light and time.
Because they're not there, right? The stars.
They're now dead 13 billion years, but it's taken that long to get to us, and we can sort of understand how the universe kind of formed after the Big Bang and how these kind of heavy, I don't know.
When you say you mean us, right?
Yeah, I got to page 2 and then I was like, the words got too big for me.
It is really kind of unfathomable. Kerry, you're going to have to help me with it because it is just
we are seeing 13 billion light years for 13 billion years ago. So they've got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, that's a long time. For a while now, there was a while ago where they started listening to the universe, and then they announced they could hear the very edges of the universe, and we heard what they sound like. Which I did say at the time that if we hear beyond that, if they can listen to infinity, we'll never hear the end of it. Thank you. I got jokes as well.
That's very good.
No, it's not bad.
Does that work well on Saturday Night Jonglers?
No, I wouldn't do it for a Jonglers.
Okay.
So we're seeing the edge of the universe, but by the way, and this will disappoint you, no God. We haven't seen him. There's no.
Yeah, but he's invisible.
There's no big eye looking back, waving.
She.
Them's invisible. And this is, of course, the James Webb telescope, which lots of gay activists, by the way, said was a homophobic telescope. Because that's something that James Webb said in the 1960s.
What did he say?
Okay.
I don't think he said anything. I think they thought he might have.
Oh, wow.
You know, that's what it takes.
That's enough.
But thankfully they didn't, and we've now got these beautiful images. Anyway, part 2 is at an end. Fear not, for in part 3 we have got psycho cyborgs, Google being all about the vibes, and Dirty Dirk, the degenerate tortoise. See you in 2 minutes.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio,
And online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to the final part of Headliners tonight. I'm Andrew Doyle, and with me I have got Josh Howie and Kerry Marks. Let's kick off part 3 with psychotic cyborgs from Friday's Times. Kerry, what's this about?
A third of scientists fear Judgment Day from robots. Basically, if we can survive climate change and Putin and Liz Truss's budget, then it's the robots that are going to kill us. This is a survey done of scientists, and that's a third of them think that this is a reality. A scenario is entirely plausible, with a third of researchers in artificial intelligence believing that it could cause a disaster akin to a nuclear apocalypse. But not necessarily as we'd expect it to be. It could be simply the carbon footprint of machines, because they take up so much energy, and because of corporations' involvement and cutting corners.
But surely they're right. I mean, look, not just because we've all seen Terminator 2, but we've seen the acceleration of AI. You know, there was that AI machine in Google, and it started to say things like, "I'm feeling lonely, I want to die," and things. It's like this.
And then they did the worst thing, and then they killed it, or they tried to isolate it even further. Don't do that.
Just look. Look.
How do you know what's wrong for a robot?
Well, just because then someone will release it and it'll be super angry.
This is so obviously how the world is going to end, Josh, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, surely.
Yeah, but
they will get smart and the vacuum cleaners will kill us.
That's our future.
Yeah.
But which is great, because then we don't have to worry about all this Tory issues. But cost of living and whatnot.
We'll have sex bots up until then.
But yeah,
though.
that is interesting. I didn't realise that it took so much power to run the AI. So I think what's going to probably happen is, what they could do is they could sort of take over. This is my idea, by the way, to use like human bodies to generate electricity. Human bodies generate electricity. They should capture us in pods and then generate us electricity, and then occupy our mind with some kind of like virtual reality thing and call it like Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah, Josh's new book.
Well, you know, if no one does that, they should at least make a film about it.
I think it's a good idea.
That's a great idea. Friday's Metro next, and Google being all about the vibes. Josh, what on earth does that mean?
That means that they're going to introduce. Well, vibes are like a sort of. Do you want me to explain the word vibe?
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
I want you to do it.
I know you. Okay.
What does this program come
It's like
to?
one of my kids like explaining, like, Daddy, what is this
vibe mean,
a vibe is like, for me, it resonates with like, something that's cool vibes. But I guess it'd be negative. The energy, the resonance of an area.
I was hoping you were going to do like a 60s New Orleans accent.
Hey, dude, this is the vibe. It's like, so Google Maps is going to be. They're talking about. I'm thinking it's a great idea, like a general vibe of the area.
Yeah.
Like, what's the arty area like? But I think also maybe they'll see who's there, so they'll go, Andrew's there, so this is the museum area.
Well, they're going to be stalking me.
Yeah, well, they'll stalk all of us, and they'll say, hey, Josh, that must be the cool
and this is
area.
good.
What, is it, so it's like
the smokers.
Are they going to do this with negative things, like, oh, this area's a bit stabby?
Well, that's what they haven't said in this article, but that is maybe a little bit...
Useful.
That would be useful, but that could be a little bit dodgy in terms of people who live in that area are going to be like, what are you trying to say about us?
But also, they're bound to end up slagging off the areas, aren't they? Because areas do have... I used to live in East Grinstead, which is the very Scientology area, and that's got a certain vibe about it, believe you me, you know?
But people might be into that particular vibe, but then will you be able to say, I want the Scientology vibe? I imagine all routes are going to take you through Brighton or somewhere that's fairly cool. You know,
Brighton used to be cool.
Well, it used to be cool. It's changed a bit. I couldn't think of a good city to give as an example. But what I'd like to see from Google is one that just avoids hills when you're walking.
Yeah.
You know, you walk around. I was in Edinburgh recently, and of course driving routes, that's fine. But then it's taking me routes. So I've got to go all the way downhill, all the way uphill. And you could take me around there.
That's what Edinburgh is, mate. It's just
there's ways around. And I expect Google to do the work.
Yes, this has got a gradient vibe.
I have a good vibe.
This is the heart attack vibe.
Yeah.
I think the word vibe is too nebulous. I don't really.
What word do you want?
Atmosphere, joyfulness.
I don't know, but because I still don't quite know what vibe means. I don't know.
Okay, well,
if you've never
been to a party?
Actually, not for a long time.
Okay,
you probably noticed.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure this is going to take off.
Okay, fine.
On to Friday's mail. Turns out Bruce Willis will actually die hard, thanks to deepfake.
What?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Okay,
very nice.
That's because
yeah, no,
this isn't a sexual.
You could take a bow on that one.
No, look, he's going to carry on acting.
He will.
Forever.
I see.
Yes.
That's what I meant. What did you think I meant?
Well, it's just Die Hard.
It was a nice pun.
It reminded me of a certain sequence.
We better explain this quick because people won't know what on earth is going on.
Bruce Willis has sold the rights to permit deep-fake digital twin of himself to be created to use on screen, allowing him to come out of retirement after having a aphasia diagnosis.
Okay.
So he can still carry on acting without carrying on acting.
And he'll be a better actor now, hopefully.
Well, the deep fake will get lines right and will really show up the original actor.
And I think he'll be really committed because he's been calling it in for a while. Disease or not, which is very sad, obviously.
Can I just say, that is actually a deep fake image on the screen now. That is not Bruce Willis. Now, that's terrifying to me.
Is that his deep fake, is it?
Yeah, that's not him. So tell me this, though. As an actor, how could you possibly be satisfied with a computer just pretending to be you?
You get paid the money.
No,
yeah, right now you get paid the money, but what's going to happen a few years down the line is the deep fake is going to go, how come he's getting all the money?
Oh, my God.
By the way,
this is how it starts.
Can a deep fake win an Oscar? Is that where we're going with this? Like, so all the people who are going to win the awards are going to be just robots? I'm not happy. I like artistic expression. I think actors need artistic satisfaction, not someone programming something that pretends.
Well, my understanding is that you still have actors underneath it.
Do you?
Who then they sort of mask the faces on top of it.
Is that what
No,
they
I think they can completely take
I think they can, but I believe that
computerised image of you and have you act without you ever
Well, they
being
did
there
it in that
anymore.
Star Wars film, Rogue
But they had
One.
real actors underneath
no,
it.
They had Christopher Lee in the film, and he's been dead for 20 years.
No, but they have a real actor that
Yeah, but they
mask
use his
the
dead
face
body,
on
and
top of. And that's what they did. That Bruce Willis has done this commercial, or his AI has done this commercial, and they used a real actor, and then they sort of mask the face on top.
My dystopian future. You talked about what your book's going to be, but the dystopian future I see is robots take over. There are no humans left, and they are watching films they are making of humans based on the deep fakes they have taken of us.
I think that's going to happen. I'm terrified about all of this stuff.
Well, I'm already...
Slow it down, people.
OK, I'm a digital copy. I'm not even here. I'm at home screaming at my kids to go to bed.
Friday's Telegraph next, and a lesson why you should never give your pet tortoise a nickname. Josh.
Dirty Dirk. And that's I'm talking about Kerry there. So this is
fair comment.
the 70-year-old tortoise. He has had fathers for 8 babies this year. This
good going.
It's
for
pretty
a man
good.
Of his age.
No, it's very good. But this is a little bit sad. The females are sporting minor battle wounds because he's very heavy, and I'm wondering if he's been watching tortoise pornography. Like if he's gotten this sort of sick.
That's him with the 8. But four of those are from a tortoise called Charlie, and 4 from Isabella.
And they had to point out that it was a female called Charlie.
Yeah.
Because that's
How
the way
does
things
Charlie
go.
feel about Isabella? I mean, should they not be monogamous?
I think she's happy to get a rest.
Sounds like it.
Sounds
and
like
they named this tortoise after Dirk Diggler from Boogie Nights.
but he's 70 years old. So what? Which came first, the tortoise or the
Are you saying they named the character after the tortoise?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. That's the only way it makes sense.
I mean,
logically, unless they use that telescope to go back in time and see a randy tortoise.
What do you think about this? I mean, what is 70 in the human years, though? I think 70-year-old tortoise is probably similar to like an 18-year-old.
No, I tried to find on here. I looked through the story to see if they gave information about how long he'd live. They said he'll carry on living for a few years.
No, they said he could be having a father. He can be a father for another 50 years.
Yeah, they outlive us, don't they?
They definitely outlive us, and they have a better time by the look of it as well.
Anyway, let's move on. Friday's Mirror now, and Arctic wolves coming out of beagles.
OK, so a beagle dog has given birth to an Arctic wolf.
It sounds like The Thing.
It sounds like a horror film.
But you know the thing where the wolf pops out?
Yeah.
Sorry, mate.
Awful, but you're right.
How is this technology going
first
amok
case
again?
of its kind. Well, it's used the technology. The Beijing lab have carried out.
Oh, not again!
Yeah, they're always
Beijing,
at it.
stop it!
So whatever. When will they learn?
God.
When will they learn? So we're all going to have wolf disease.
Going away.
They've used the same technology that was used to create Dolly the sheep,
which didn't work out too well for
Dolly. The clone. Didn't work out. And at the time, I remember we were all looking at the picture of 2 sheep and going, how can you tell?
Yeah.
You know, of all things to clone, it's about the most obvious there is. So now they've cloned the wolf, put it into the beagle, so the beagle would give birth to a wolf, which must be a hell of a shock for the beagle.
I would have thought.
Because the beagle's going to tell all her friends she's going to cry wolf, and after a while she will become the beagle who cried wolf.
I think this is... I mean,
was that worth it or not?
No, it was good.
But the beagle who cried wolf,
Let's
clip that up.
Yeah?
This is against nature, isn't it, Josh? I mean, this is... This is like Jurassic Park, you know? This is where this is going.
Yeah, this is where it's going. And the fact is that they're still living together.
Well, the beagle and the wolf.
The beagle and the wolf, that's her surrogate mother. Wait a minute,
Right.
We just got news in. No, been eaten.
Yeah, but
just say the mum.
This is obviously going to happen. One of the worst ways to die. Anyway, Friday's Express now, and are women mere commodities, Josh?
Is that a question in there?
It is a question.
You sure that's not a statement? Anyway, woman who makes boyfriend pay for 100% of rent, bills and food says she is an investment, which is now the word for woman of the night. Anyway, no. So she's saying that she says she has a 100-100 relationship, i.e. he provides for her financially and I give him 100% when it comes to support and love. And that's actually very similar to the relationship I have with my wife. We have a 100-100 relationship where I provide 100% financially financially, and I provide 100%.
And how's that working out? I mean,
she's still there.
Yeah, exactly. So, Kerry, I mean, this
nice compromise.
Yeah.
Kerry, is this empowering? Because, you know, I think of the Destiny's Child song, you know, bills, 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 you've got to pay all my bills, and that's really empowering for the women. Is that right? I mean, that's my frame of reference.
I like how you say women. The women!
I was trying to do a Destiny's Child
I don't
style.
judge other people's relationships, and there's all kinds of versions of relationships. I find it extraordinary that this is a news story about one couple and the way they've found of working things out. But I do find it amusing. She says here, I give him 100%, etc. for love, and little things like bringing him a smoothie after a stressful day. So he pays for everything. She doesn't even say if she makes the smoothie or just buys it.
No, with his money.
It's with his money, though, yeah. She also says that she's the one who will sort the cleaner. So she's not doing the cleaning.
Goodness me, right.
He owes her because she's got
to move on now. Friday's Mail. Is obesity a brain disorder?
Well, fat people would like to think so.
Kerry, you've got the details on that?
Obesity should now be considered a brain disorder like autism or ADHD. Doctors claim they would
Fat
put
doctors
it in the same class as autism. You think there's a bias? And, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and Asperger's. That's good. I agree with that. I'm overweight myself, but if I'm really honest about it, I'm not really over it. Still up for it, really.
It's not a brain disorder, is it?
Well, it is. It says so here. That's why they're classifying it.
Dr. Harry McKay.
But isn't that in a way just sort of making out that it's not people's? There's a choice. Isn't there a choice element to?
Well, no.
Isn't well, look, I would say, because I'm prone to gaining weight, and I would say that it's because I eat too much cake at certain periods in my life. Is that not a fair comment?
Well, that's, yeah, exactly.
Yes, you do eat too much cake.
I do. You've seen me scoffing at it.
I know. It's really disgusting.
It's disgusting.
And I don't know how you tidy yourself up so quickly before the actual show.
Because I'm a mess before the show.
Well, they're saying that it relates to how something that happens in childhood, and it seems that it actually can affect how your body regulates the weight later on.
Okay.
This is the idea. So there certainly is evidence out there that people who are obese as kids most likely are to remain obese.
Oh, no, that's absolutely true. I know people who are not obese as kids, they can eat as much as they want and they don't ever gain weight.
But then, of course, the big argument goes, why are we not finding more obesity in... I don't know, can we say third world countries anymore?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
On poorer countries or whatever. They don't seem to have the same... It's processed food is the problem.
Of course. And but where does this leave the sort of fat activists? And I use that phrase because it's the phrase they use.
They like factivists.
Factivists. Who say that actually there is no there's no health risk to obesity whatsoever. That's just part of a sort of the construction of male patriarchal...
Well, the good thing is they die out very early, actually, so it's fine.
And also, they are just silly.
Yes.
Well, you say that, but, they're not going to like this story and this revelation claiming it's a disorder, are they?
No, they won't be bothered with it. They'll just eat this.
They'll just eat the article. So, Mail once more, and a topic we three are all deeply invested in. TikTok neologisms.
Neologisms, yes. So, phrases like Barbie-core, quiet quitting, Ladolaby. Do you know what you've read this article?
I've read the article and I had not heard of any of them.
No, I haven't. And my son is desperate. He's 13. He's desperate to go on TikTok. I'm like, forget it.
So wait, this article is claiming that these phrases that have germinated on TikTok are now gravitating to the mainstream. I've heard of none of them.
No, but then that's because we're not.
We're really uncool.
I go on TikTok. I haven't heard any of these at all.
Okay, well, the interesting part of the article, actually, which I thought was this whole idea of what people are now.
I am cool.
Algo speak. A lot of it's coming from algo speak, which is what people do to avoid messing with the algorithm.
Right,
so, as TikTok or various other companies are trying to, stop certain videos about different subjects.
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of this came from racism and stuff, because I remember hearing about this, when people were trying to talk about Jewish people, like anti-Semitic online, they have different codes. One of the first ones was having 3 brackets outside people's names.
Which I've seen. I've seen that.
Yeah, well, now Jews appropriated, but there's all these different things. So now it's to be able to talk about sex, and this lesbian is the dollar bean means lesbian
because they replace the S with the dollar sign.
Yeah, exactly. So lead, dollar, but yeah.
But I don't think that'll catch on. I mean, it doesn't kick off the tongue.
This has been around for a lot, long before, say, TikTok. Cockney rhyming slang was to avoid, if the police were listening, they could talk about subjects, and they could say, I'm going down to the Frog and Toad with the rubber-dub-dub with the Trouble and Strife, because they thought it was illegal to go to the pub with their wife.
It's
they could, but
Polari was like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally, yeah.
So it's but at a time when it was illegal to be gay, you came up with these code words, and that was a way to sort of do it. But like I said, I don't think TikTok is as influential as they claim, as this article is claiming, because I haven't heard anything.
I think most of the public wouldn't know what these signs are.
I'm not on TikTok, but if it has gravitated to the mainstream, I would have heard the phrase.
OK, well, let's see if any of our audiences get any of these. YT, weed, Weed?
I've heard that
Yeah,
word.
okay. Well,
Barbiecore?
Right, what is a Barbiecore?
Barbiecore is like the Barbie. It's like that obsession with pink, and like lots of sort of like that feminine stereotype.
Well, let's move on now where we thought we would end the show, and just take a couple of minutes to celebrate the life of the icon that was Coolio, who has died unfortunately at 59.
Wow.
Yeah, very sad.
Coolio was a stone-faced rapper who softened hearts. His signature song owned the airwaves and proved that an MC could be gangster and gregarious.
It was a great song, Gangster's Paradise. And
Well done, Guardian. Very poetic.
And I remember the iconic video, and he's there with Michelle Pfeiffer.
Staring at each other in their chair. It was very...
He had a lot of big hits. He was an actor as well. He was in Leprechaun in the Hood, which is actually my favourite of the Leprechaun films.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the fifth Leprechaun film. It's just after Leprechaun in Space.
Okay.
Which is it was actually...
See, I was a fan of his from Celebrity Big Brother.
He was very good on Celebrity Big Brother, absolutely.
He was very good.
Eight studio albums as well, which is pretty
Yes,
good.
and there's been lots of tributes coming in about him. People associate him with that song, Gangster's Paradise, but he did many albums, he did many singles. You probably know more than you realise.
They're saying that he was one of the originators of G-Funk, like that kind of West Coast, which then, like Snoop Doggy Dogg, came afterwards and kind of took it further forward. Anyway, it's sad. That's young.
Very sad. So thanks for joining me for Headliners. We'll be back, of course, tomorrow at the same time at 11 o'clock. That's going to be with Mark Dolan. We will see you there. Farewell.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's